welcome to our video about the importance of color. Color is important, apart from being very attractive to look at, because it tells you the age of the wine, it tells you the freshness of the wine, and it can tell you a lot more. It's important to realize that color comes entirely from the skins. It's the pigmentation in the skins which brings the color. And so white wines, which are basically made from white grapes, which are actually green when they're picked, don't have any color when they start off their life. And red wines, which can have red grapes with a thin skin, which will add a little color, or red grapes with a very thick skin, which will add a lot of color, are macerated during fermentation time on the skins for about 10 to 15 days, so they have a very slow extraction of color. What happens with white wines is as they age, they gain in color. And what happens the opposite with red wines is they age, they lose color. So white wines are said technically to maderize. Their color gets fuller and fuller and fuller, and then brown and brown and browner to look like Madeira. And red wines are supposed to oxidize, which means they lose color until the point they're really quite pale. Let's just look at the three wines that I've selected. We've got a 2008 Sauvignon Blanc from South Africa. We've got a 2004 Sauterne from the Bordeaux region. And we've got a 20-year-old Madeira from Madeira. And you can see right away that one is very pale, and it's young, and it ought to be. One is very full, golden, and one is brown. So looking at them with a little more depth, you can see the Sauvignon Blanc, which is a beautiful, slightly greeny color. I like green in a young wine because it shows it's fresh. Very bright, very clear, and you know by looking at that it's going to be fresh, fruity, and dry. We then look at the Sauterne, which is actually made with a little Sauvignon Blanc, but with a vastly higher proportion of Semillon, and it's fermented in cask, whereas the Sauvignon Blanc would have been fermented in a stainless steel tank, so no possible oxidation there. It's golden, and if you look at the legs on this wine, the tears which go down the glass, which I can see very clearly, they're very thick, which means even without smelling it and tasting it, you know that wine is going to be a sweet wine, or you know it's going to be a rich wine. Then we turn to the Madeira, 20-year-old Madeira, which is actually brown. And that has become brown. It's lived in cask for over 20 years, and the color has maderized. And so it's a concentration of color within the cask. So those three wines, out of the many million of wines in the world, just show you the gradation of color which you can see from a very dry young wine to a sweet wine at 5 years old to a Madeira 20 years old. So what we have here, we have a Syrah Grenache from the south of France, 2008. We have a Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot blend, which is actually a Cru Classé from the Margaux region in Bordeaux, 1995. And we have a 20-year-old Tawny. So you can see, as I said earlier, that red wines lose color with age. So the first wine, the Syrah and Grenache grapes, are very thick-skinned grapes, and they're generally grown in a rather hot part of the country, southern France, Châteauneuf-du-Pape or Spain. And you look at that color, it's almost purple. And the color, which is deep in the middle, goes straight to the rim, and the rim is still purple. So you know by looking at that color, A, it's going to be a richly extracted wine, but B, it's still very, very young, and therefore it's going to taste youthful. Then we turn to the 1995 Margaux, which is 13, 14 years old, and that's a very good depth of color. The Cabernet Sauvignon is a very dark colored grape indeed, but you can see that it's lost its purpleness of youth, and the rim, which tells you as the wine's aging, how it's aging, the rim is really quite brick red. The rim is fading. So you can sense that that's a mature wine becoming even more mature. So you would not expect the same vibrant fruit from that as you would from that. And then we look at the 20-year-old Tawny, and you can see it's tawny. It's sort of has not even a brick red. It's lost its redness. It has a deep red, red mahogany about it, and the rim is very pale. The rim has almost a colorless rim, and that's been in cask for 20 years. So it's oxidized. It's lost color with age. There are many, many other things you can learn from colour because there's so many wines, but the colour is where you start, and the colour is really a very, very important thing. Thank you.